Malaysia is a country that's successfully navigating modernity while trying to hold on to tradition. It's not always easy, and sometimes tradition loses ground, but overall Malaysia is a success story of development and progress. Hoi An is a town that feels like it's in this precious, fragile, temporary moment where tradition is still dominant but modernity is creeping in. In 10 years, 20 years, Hoi An might look very different. The tailors might be gone, replaced by chain stores. The street food vendors might be pushed out by restaurants with English menus and high prices. The ancient town might become more like a theme park than a living community. This is already happening in parts of Asia that got discovered by mass tourism earlier. So in a weird way, right now, at this specific moment in time, Hoi An might be offering something that's increasingly rare in Southeast Asia, a chance to experience a place that hasn't been completely transformed by globalization and mass tourism, that's still primarily functioning as a community for locals rather than as a stage set for visitors. Malaysia crossed that threshold decades ago, which has brought enormous benefits to Malaysians, but has also changed the nature of what visitors experience there. Hoi An is right at that threshold now, and depending on how things develop, this might be the last chance to experience it in its current form. I don't want to be one of those travelers who shows up somewhere, falls in love with it, and then wants it to stay frozen in time for my benefit, while the people who actually live there don't get the benefits of development and progress. That's selfish and wrong. If the people of Hoi An want more development, more tourism infrastructure, more modern amenities, they absolutely should have those things. But from a pure visitor experience standpoint, right now, in this moment, Hoi An is offering something special that even amazing places like Malaysia can't quite match because they've moved past this particular stage of development. So here's my conclusion after going back and forth between these two places. After talking to locals and travelers, after really thinking deeply about what makes a place special, Malaysia is objectively more impressive. It's more developed, more diverse, easy to travel in, more spectacular in many ways. But Hoi An is more emotionally resonant. It gets under your skin in a way that's hard to explain. I recommended Malaysia to friends who want an amazing Southeast Asian trip, and I know they'll have a great time. But when friends ask me where I'd go back to tomorrow if I could, I say Hoi An without hesitation. And that surprised me more than anything. The title of this video suggests you'll be shocked, and maybe you are, or maybe you're not. Maybe you think I'm crazy for even comparing a small Vietnamese town to an entire diverse country. That's fair. But what shocked me wasn't that Hoi An is better than Malaysia, because I don't think it is. What shocked me is that despite all of Malaysia's advantages, despite everything is going for it, Hoi An created memories and feelings and experiences that hit deeper. And that taught me something important about travel and about life. Bigger isn't always better. More developed isn't always more meaningful. Sometimes the places that challenge us, that slow us down, that force us to engage more deeply, those are the places that transform us. Let's talk about tourism infrastructure, because this is where things get really interesting. Malaysia has fantastic tourism infrastructure. The airports are modern. The highways are excellent. There are trains, buses, ride-sharing apps. English is widely spoken. Tourist information is readily available. It's easy to travel in Malaysia. You can plan your entire trip online, book everything in advance, and execute it smoothly. I did exactly this, and it worked perfectly. Hoi An is different. Sure, you can book hotels online, but a lot of the best experiences aren't on the internet. They're discovered through conversation, through wandering, through trial and error. That cooking class I took, I found out about it because I struck up a conversation with someone at a cafe. The best tailor I found, recommended by someone I met on a boat trip. The most amazing meal I had, stumbled upon it while lost in a back alley. This creates two very different travel experiences. In Malaysia, you can optimize everything. Research the best restaurants, the best attractions, the best times to visit, and execute a highly efficient trip. In Hoi An, you kind of have to surrender to serendipity. You have to be okay with not knowing where you're going or what you're doing. You have to be comfortable with uncertainty. And for some travelers, Malaysia's approach is clearly superior. Not everyone wants uncertainty or spontaneity when they're on vacation. Some people want to maximize their limited time off. see as much as possible, have reliable experiences. Nothing wrong with that at all. But for travelers who are open to it, Hoi An's approach creates magic. Those unplanned moments, those random conversations, those unexpected discoveries, they become the highlights of the trip. I had an amazing time in Malaysia, and I could tell you exactly which highly rated restaurants I ate at and which top attractions I visited. But if you ask me about my favorite memory from Malaysia, I have to think about it for a moment. If you ask me about Hoi An, I immediately think of that coffee shop, that conversation with the tailor, that evening on the river with the lanterns, that wrong turn that led me to the best meal of my life. The memories are more vivid, more emotional, more personal. Now let me address the obvious question. Is this just nostalgia? Am I being unfair to Malaysia because I went there first, and by the time I got to Hoi An I was in a more open, more relaxed mindset? That's a valid criticism, and I've thought about it a lot. But here's the thing. I'm not alone in this observation. I've talked to dozens of travelers who've been to both places, and almost all of them say something similar. Malaysia's fantastic, professional, well-organized, delicious, beautiful. Hoi An is magical, transformative, unforgettable. Different words, different emotional weight. The weather and environment play into this too. Malaysia is hot and humid most of the year. Hoi An is also hot and humid most of the year. Both have rainy seasons. Both have mosquitoes. But the geography creates different vibes. Malaysia has incredible natural diversity. Rainforests, mountains, beaches, islands, limestone caves. You can go diving, hiking, rock climbing, jungle trekking. It's an adventure playground. Hoi An is flatter, more compact. The beach is nice, but not spectacular. The countryside is pretty, but not dramatic. On paper, Malaysia should win on natural beauty and outdoor activities. But Hoi An has rice paddies. And I know that sounds ridiculous. What's special about rice paddies? But hear me out. Just outside the ancient town, you can bike through these vast rice paddies. Bright green in the growing season, golden during harvest, water buffalo wandering around, farmers in conical hats working the fields. The whole scene looks like a painting. And because you're on a bike, moving slowly, you can stop whenever you want, talk to farmers, watch them work, learn about rice cultivation. It's peaceful in a way that's hard to describe. Malaysia has beautiful countryside too. The tea plantations in Cameron Highlands come to mind. But there's something about Hoi An's rice paddies that feels more intimate, more accessible, more alive. The beaches are another point of comparison. Malaysia's islands, Perhentian, Redong, Timon, they're genuinely stunning. Crystal clear water, incredible snorkeling and diving, postcard perfect beaches. Hoi An's and Bang Beach is nice. It's pleasant. You can relax there, but it's not going to blow your mind. If beach paradise is what you're after, Malaysia wins. No contest. But here's what I noticed. The beaches in Malaysia felt more resort-oriented, more developed, more catered to tourists. And Bang Beach in Hoi An felt more local. Vietnamese families having picnics, kids playing in the waves, vendors selling fresh seafood that they grill right there on the beach. It's not prettier, but it's more authentic, more cultural, more connected to actual daily life. Let me talk about something that might seem shallow, but actually matters a lot. Shopping. Malaysia is a shopping paradise. Kuala Lumpur has world-class malls, markets selling everything imaginable, electronics at great prices, designer goods, local crafts. You can buy almost anything you want. Hoi An shopping is basically tailors, lanterns, and souvenirs. Much more limited selection. But here's where it gets interesting. In Malaysia, shopping felt like shopping. In Hoi An, getting clothes may felt like participating in a craft edition. The tailors take their time, they consult with you, they make adjustments, they take pride in their work. I had a shirt made, and the process took 3 fittings over 2 days. In most contexts, that would be annoying. But watching Mr. Vin work, seeing how much care he put into every stitch, understanding that this is his life's work, it transformed the experience from a transaction into something meaningful. This is the pattern I kept noticing. Malaysia does things better in terms of efficiency, variety, infrastructure, development. But Hoi An does things better in terms of depth, connection, authenticity, emotional impact. It's not that one is objectively better than the other. They're offering fundamentally different experiences. Malaysia is a friend who has their life together, who's successful and capable and can handle anything. Hoi An is a friend who's a little messy, a little disorganized, but who tells you stories that make you cry and laugh and feel alive. The question of which one you prefer probably says a lot about what you value in travel. Do you want comfort and reliability? Malaysia. Do you want transformation and unpredictability? Hoi An. Do you want variety and options? Malaysia. Do you want depth and immersion? Hoi An. Do you want to efficiently see a lot of amazing things? Malaysia. Do you want to slowly experience fewer things more deeply? Hoi An. And again, neither is better or worse. They're different. But here's what I think is the most important difference, and it's the thing that shocked me the most. In Hoi An, I asked someone at my hotel where to get good chow lau, which is this amazing local noodle dish. She didn't just tell me the name of a restaurant. She drew me a little map, told me to look for the vendor with the blue plastic stool, mentioned that the owner's daughter speaks English if I need help, and said to tell them that Lynn from the hotel sent me. When I got there, the whole interaction changed. The daughter came over, we chatted about where I'm from, what brought me to Hoi An, how long I'm staying. Her mother insisted I try their homemade chili sauce. Another customer, a local guy, started telling me about the history of chow lau, how it can only be made with water from a specific local well. By the time I left, I felt like I'd made friends, not just purchase a meal. Now here's where I need to be really careful, because I'm not saying one approach is better than the other. Efficiency and convenience are valuable. There's something to be said for being able to navigate a foreign country easily, for having reliable infrastructure, for not having to work so hard just to accomplish basic tasks. Malaysia's development is genuinely impressive and makes it accessible to a wider range of travelers. But there's also something to be said for friction, for difficulty, for having to slow down and engage more deeply with a place and its people. And Hoi An seems to have maintained that friction, whether intentionally or not, in a way that creates opportunities for deeper experiences. The food situation perfectly illustrates this tension. Malaysian food is world famous, and for good reason. It's a genuine contender for the best food in Southeast Asia, maybe even the best food in the world. The complexity of flavors, the fusion of influences, the sheer variety, it's staggering. You can eat a different dish every day for a month and barely scratch the surface. Hoi An's food scene is more limited in scope. You've got your banh mi, your chow lau, your white rose dumplings, your fried wonton, and a handful of other local specialties. In terms of pure variety, Malaysia wins hands down. But here's what I noticed. In Malaysia, because there's so much variety and so much competition, restaurants have to constantly innovate, modernize, cater to different tastes. You can find traditional Malay food, but you can also find fusion versions, Instagram-friendly versions, westernized versions. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. Evolution is natural. But in Hoi An, because the food scene is smaller and more focused on specific local dishes, there's less pressure to change. That woman making banh mi at 6 in the morning, she's probably making it the same way her mother taught her. The chow lau vendor, the recipe hasn't changed in decades. And because of that, there's this purity to the food, this sense that you're eating something authentic and unchanged. I started thinking about this idea of authenticity, which is a tricky concept. Who decides what's authentic? Is authentic better? Isn't all food authentic to someone somewhere? But there's something different about eating food in a place where it originated, made by people who've been making it for generations, using techniques and recipes that have been passed down rather than invented for tourist appeal. Malaysia has this too, of course. You can find hawker stalls that have been run by the same family for 50 years. But because Malaysia is bigger and more developed, you also have more dilution, more variation, more adaptation to modern tastes and tourist expectations. Here's something that really surprised me. Coffee culture. Malaysia has a strong coffee tradition. Cappuccino culture is a real thing, and it's wonderful. The thick, sweet kopi with condensed milk, the atmosphere of traditional coffee shops. It's a genuine experience. But Hoi An's coffee scene caught me completely off guard. Vietnamese coffee is already famous, sure, but in Hoi An it reaches another level. I found this tiny cafe, literally just 6 seats, run by this elderly man who roasts his own beans. He took 20 minutes to make my coffee using a traditional fin filter, and he wouldn't let me rush him. He explained his entire process, showed me the beans, described the flavor notes I should look for. The coffee, when it finally arrived, was a religious experience, and it cost less than $1. In Malaysia, I had excellent coffee, but it was usually in more modern cafes with espresso machines with prices that reflected the overhead and the ambience. Not expensive by Western standards, but more expensive than Hoi An. And while the coffee was great, the experience felt more transactional. Order, pay, drink, leave. In Hoi An, that old man making coffee, he wasn't just selling me a beverage. He was sharing his craft, his knowledge, his passion. And he had time to do that because his overhead is lower, because the pace of life is slower, because the expectations are different. This brings me to something controversial I need to address: cost of living and travel. Malaysia is often promoted as an affordable destination, and compared to places like Singapore or Western countries, it absolutely is. You can eat well for cheap, accommodation is reasonable, transportation is inexpensive, but Hoi An? It's on another level entirely. I'm talking about meals for under $2, hotels for $20 a night, tailored clothing for $30, massages for $5. The purchasing power you have as a visitor in Hoi An is remarkable. Now, I need to acknowledge the elephant in the room here. Why is it so cheap? Is it ethical to celebrate how inexpensive a place is when that reflects lower wages and less economic development? This is something I wrestled with during my time in both places. Malaysia's higher costs reflect better infrastructure, higher wages, more developed economy. That's objectively good for Malaysians. Hoi An's lower costs reflect a less developed economy, which means fewer opportunities for locals. But here's what complicated my thinking. The people I met in Hoi An didn't seem less happy or less fulfilled than the people I met in Malaysia. If anything, there was a sense of community, of connection, of cultural identity that felt stronger. The tailor who's been in the same shop for 40 years. He could probably make more money if he moved to a bigger city, modernized his operation, scaled up, but he doesn't want to. He's happy where he is, doing what he's doing, living how he's living. I'm not romanticizing poverty or suggesting that economic development is bad. That would be ignorant and offensive. But I am suggesting that there's something about Hoi An's current state, this moment before it potentially becomes more developed and modernized, that creates unique opportunities for deep cultural experiences that are harder to find in more developed places like Malaysia. And that's not a criticism of Malaysia at all. It's just an observation about different stages of development and what they offer to visitors. You know what's funny? Everyone keeps telling me Malaysia is the ultimate Southeast Asian destination. The food, the culture, the beaches, they say it's got everything. And honestly, I believe them. I've spent months exploring Kuala Lumpur, Penang, Langkawi, you name it. But then something happened that completely changed my perspective. I took a short trip to this little town in Vietnam called Hoi An, and within the first 3 hours, I started questioning everything I thought I knew about traveling in Southeast Asia. Now, before all my Malaysian followers start coming for me in the comments, hear me out, because what I discovered is going to surprise you just as much as it surprised me. Let me paint you a picture. It's 6 in the morning, and I'm walking through the ancient town of Hoi An. The sun is just starting to break through the mist hanging over the Thursday Bond River. And there's this woman, probably in her 70s, setting up her street food stall. She's making banh mi, and the smell of fresh baguettes mixing with cilantro and grilled pork is absolutely intoxicating. I pay her about 40 cents for what turns out to be the best sandwich I've had in my entire life. 40 cents. I'm standing there, sandwich in hand, and I'm thinking about the nasi lemak I had in Kuala Lumpur the day before I flew out. It cost me about $3, which is still cheap by Western standards, but here's where it gets interesting. The nasi lemak was incredible, don't get me wrong. The sambal had this perfect kick, the anchovies were crispy, the egg was perfectly cooked. But something about this moment in Hoi An felt different, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. So I started digging deeper, and what I found over the next 2 weeks of going back and forth between my memories of Malaysia and my experiences in Hoi An revealed something that most travel bloggers aren't talking about. There's this narrative that Malaysia is a more developed, more convenient, more accessible option for Southeast Asian travel. And Hoi An is just this quaint little town you visit for a day or two. But that narrative? It's missing something crucial. Here's what nobody tells you about Hoi An. This town was once one of the most important trading ports in all of Southeast Asia. Between the 15th and 19th centuries, ships from China, Japan, India, and Europe would dock here. The architecture you see in the ancient town isn't just pretty. It's a physical record of cultural exchange that happened over centuries. You've got Japanese-covered bridges next to Chinese, assembly halls next to French colonial buildings, next to Vietnamese tube houses. It's like walking through a living museum, except people actually live here, run businesses here, raise families here. And this is where the comparison with Malaysia gets really interesting. Malaysia has incredible diversity, right? You've got Malay, Chinese, Indian, and indigenous influences all mixing together. Georgetown in Penang is a UNESCO World Heritage Site for this exact reason. The street art, the clan jetties, the temples and mosques sitting side by side, it's beautiful. I spent 4 days in Georgetown and loved every minute of it. But here's what struck me. In Georgetown, you feel like you're in a city that's trying to preserve its past while rushing toward its future. There are high rises going up everywhere, shopping malls, modern infrastructure, which is great. That's progress. That's development. But in Hoi An, it's different. The entire ancient town is pedestrianized after a certain hour. No motorbikes, no cars, just people walking, cycling, existing in the space that feels frozen in time, but somehow still completely alive and functional. I met this tailor in Hoi An, Mr. Vin, who's been making clothes in the same shop for 40 years. His father was a tailor. His grandfather was a tailor. He showed me photographs from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the shop looks almost identical. Same wooden shutters, same sewing machines, same basic layout. But here's the thing, he's not stuck in the past. He's got an iPad where he shows customers design options. He ships internationally. He's on Instagram. He's managed to adapt to modernity without losing the essence of what makes his craft special. And when I asked him about this, about how he balances tradition and progress, he said something that really stuck with me. He said in Hoi An, they don't see tradition and progress as opposing forces. They see them as partners. Now, let's talk about something that's going to sound superficial, but actually reveals something deeper, the Instagram factor. Malaysia is incredibly photogenic. The Petronas Towers, the Bata Caves, the tea plantations in Cameron Highlands, the crystal clear waters of Perhentian Islands. I've got hundreds of photos from Malaysia that got crazy engagement, but Hoi An operates on a different level entirely. There's this one moment that happens every evening just after sunset. The entire ancient town lights up with these silk lanterns, thousands of them, red, yellow, blue, green, hanging from every building, reflecting in the river, floating on small boats. People release lanterns on the water and make wishes. And in that moment, you're surrounded by hundreds of other people, locals and tourists alike, all participating in this ritual that's been happening for generations. I tried to capture on camera, and honestly, I failed. Not because I'm a bad photographer, but because some experiences are too big for a lens. The photos I got are beautiful, sure, but they don't capture the feeling of being there. The way the light plays on people's faces, the sound of traditional music floating from somewhere you can't quite locate, the smell of incense mixing with street food, the feeling of being part of something ancient and timeless. Malaysia has moments like this too, absolutely. The evening call to prayer echoing across Kuala Lumpur, the energy of Jalan Alor at night, the sunrise at Mount Kinabalu. But there's something about Hoi An's evening lantern scene that feels more immersive, more all-encompassing. And I started wondering why. The answer, I think, has to do with scale and pace. Malaysia is a country of over 30 million people. It's modern, it's developed, it's connected. You can get 5G internet in the middle of Kuala Lumpur, order food delivery at 2 in the morning, take a grab anywhere you want to go. Hoi An is a town of about 120,000 people. Things move slower. The internet cuts out sometimes. You can't always find what you're looking for with a quick app search. And at first, this felt frustrating. I'm used to convenience. I'm used to efficiency. But after a few days, something shifted. I started to realize that the inconvenience was actually creating space for something else, genuine human connection. Let me give you a concrete example. In Kuala Lumpur, I wanted to find good laksa. I opened Google Maps, found a highly rated spot, took a grab there, ate my laksa. It was delicious and left. Total interaction with actual humans? Maybe 2 minutes with the person who took my order. I